I hear voices all the time. I don't think anyone can help me really. I feel a bit sad because my brain's not good. It's very bleak future, I don't know. I hope you don't have a long life.
1 in 100 Australians will be affected by schizophrenia over their lifetime. Of this, 25% will have it for the rest of their life. Rita is just one example of the many voiceless Australians who suffer from chronic and drug-resistant schizophrenia. It is people like Rita who will face a lifetime of dealing with symptoms such as delusions, hallucinations, and disorganized thinking, just to name a few.
In that pointy end where people have quite severe illness, it can become a really lonely and isolating illness sometimes, because if you have chronic schizophrenia, you probably are in need of a lot of health services, so you probably might have a lot of support from local community mental health teams, but because of the illness you probably aren't able to work. You most likely don't have a family, like you don't have a marriage or kids. You're probably pulled out of study and weren't able to stick with your study.
After years of unsuccessfully trialling various antipsychotics, Rita has recently begun taking the antipsychotic Clozapine in a last-bit attempt to alleviate her symptoms. Clozapine is considered a last resort drug and is not often prescribed because of its potentially severe side effects and the need to be extensively monitored while on the drug.
So Clozapine is usually used in, treatment-resistant schizophrenia, because compared to all the other antipsychotics, it's probably the most effective that we have available. But it also has a lot of side effects and a lot of problems with its use. So it's not something that someone would start on initially. They would usually trial a number of different antipsychotics, and only if they weren't responding to those, then they might go on Clozapine. So there's a lot of monitoring, and that's ongoing for the rest of your life.
I had to start taking Clozapine because nothing else was working. I wasn't doing very well when I was on something else. Just scatterbrained, and it's very it gives you side effects that you don't want.
Richard Schweizer, an advocate for schizophrenia sufferers and an ambassador for the Schizophrenia Research Institute, is also currently a Clozapine patient after having first experienced symptoms in university.
I do remember going in to see my GP, and she said, "You have schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder," which is a form of schizophrenia. And I remember sitting there feeling this immense emptiness and blackness and deep despair. And when I heard that news, I cried like a baby, and I just broke down, completely broke down. And the question for me was why my family, or most part of my family, survived the Holocaust, only for me to become a failure, or for me to have this serious lifetime illness.
On top of the challenges already faced by those with schizophrenia, Richard believes their lives are also heavily impacted by a stigma that is encouraged by unfair media depictions.
Media portrayal of people with schizophrenia is very negative, and it generally focuses on the very small percentage of people with schizophrenia who become violent. And so the two are crossed over in people's minds. Another problem, and this is really significant, is people think schizophrenia means multiple personalities, but it doesn't. Schizophrenia is an illness that affects the way your mind works, not how many personalities you have. It's an illness that affects your cognition.
There's some statistics around, 1 in 2, media stories about mental illness are about violence, yet the actual rate of violence in an illness like schizophrenia is actually really low. And the person with schizophrenia is more likely to be a victim of violence than they are the perpetrator.
But it is an illness that I would wish on nobody. And I do believe that with research will eventually come better and better treatments, and one day there will be a cure.
Oh, you just have to endure it. I think not much you can do about it. I probably will have to live my life hearing voices. I hope Clozapine will help me recover fully.
Jasmine Singh, Untold Sydney.